Mr. Haynes, do you want like a reminders like at the end, like, oh, we have 15 minutes left?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We
So
should
do you
be
want
okay, but just in case.
okay. So we have attendees in. So hello, Georgia First community. Thank you for attending our annual symposium. Please welcome Dr. Bryan Haynes from VP of GA First of Board of Directors and our head advisor from state.
You ready?
Yes.
Ready? Go. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to this session. And looking at the participant list, it looks like we have about 8 folks. I would like for this to be interactive, so feel free to put something in the chat box or whatever, and we'll try to address the questions kind of to moving forward. Again, I'd like to thank you for joining into this session. And really, what I want to do today is take a little bit of the mystery out of the judging process and give you a few hints or whatever. I think there's 2 other sessions. I think there's going to be one on Dean's List in particular. And I think Jeremy Roberts is going to go into a little bit more detail. He's one of my really good judges. I think he's going to go into some detail in terms of, kind of what to do in the pits when the kind of judges come through. So a little bit about myself. Whoop. Oh, yeah, we go. So I currently work for Kimberly-Clark Corporation, been there 33 years. Did a little bit of work before I started there. My background is actually in aerospace mechanical engineering. When I was in grad school, did a lot of research with a process that actually makes face masks, believe it or not. So I was real busy during COVID. But a lot of the technologies and things that I developed actually goes into a lot of Kimberly-Clark's personal care products. We make Kleenex, Huggies brands, things like that. I've actually been involved with FIRST Robotics since 1998. So a pretty long time. It's a good program. A few pictures. You might notice Connie there. She's my wife. I actually got her in it years ago. So it's actually been a family affair for us for a long time. And you can see me and Lonnie there. So we really enjoy going to the events and things like that. Big football fan. I can't believe that Brian Cooksey, he's a big Georgia fan, did not wear red in his kickoff. I'm going to have to give him some grief about that. But I'm a Tennessee fan, so we'll have to go from there. So anyway, let's get on to the meat of this. So if you think about it, there's two ways that you really compete in these competitions. One is the on-field performance, and this is like how your robot does during the competition and things like that, getting your alliance points and going through the tournament and everything. Then the other aspect is really in the award system or the judged awards, and you have several categories. You have the machine awards, you have the team attribute awards, and then you got the submitted awards. The submitted awards are things like, Dean's List, Impact, Woody Flowers, for the mentors and things like that. So those are kind of the main ways that you as a team and your robot actually compete during the competitions. If you take a look at the awards breakdown, then one of the things I want to mention, and I talk to a lot of students, and they're like asking questions like, well, what about, how do you guys, decide, like creativity award, for example? All of this, someone said they can't see the screen.
He is black right now.
You can't see the screen?
Nope.
Okay, it says it's sharing on my side. So, hey, can anybody else, can the other participants see the screen? Can you see it now?
Wait,
You can?
yes.
You can see the screen. Okay. Sorry about that. And for the other participants that are on here, if you have any issues or anything, I think you can put it in chat. So anyway, so hopefully everyone can see the screen. But we're talking about the machine awards. And these are awards by definition that are focusing on kind of like the design and the how the robot performs. And again, I would like to urge you, and you guys can get a copy of this presentation. You can go to the First Inspires website, and you can actually, go to the FRC section. There's a tab for awards. It's got all the awards listed. And you can actually pull up the machine awards, and you have the Autonomous Award, Creativity, Excellence in Engineering, Industrial Design Award, Innovation and Control Award, and the Quality Award. And for each one of these awards, it'll basically have the guidelines. These are the criteria for each one of these awards. Like, does it have to be able to operate on the field? Is it competitive? If you think take an award like Innovation and Control Award, for example. The recipient of that award is probably going to be in the upper rankings in terms of the competition. Like, it might, let's say there's 30 teams, it might be like number 6 or 7. A team that wins the Innovation and Control Award will not be, down at the bottom of the pack, because it is dependent upon how it works on the field of play. The other thing that's very important about these awards, I'll talk about this in a minute, is on the interview part in the pits is, can the student explain, the functions or how this feature on the robot actually works. So the key message here, these are all the machine awards. These awards really had nothing to do with, outreach or anything. This is really specifically focused on the robot itself. And again, all the criteria and guidelines, you can find that on the First Inspires website. The other awards that we look at are what's called the Team Attribute Awards. And these awards are very important for a couple of reasons, is a couple of these awards will actually get you a slot at the district championship. But anyway, these awards include Engineering Inspiration Award, Gracious Professionalism Award, Imagery, Judges Award, Rookie All-Star, Rising All-Star, Team Spirit, and Team Sustainability. Now, the Judges Award, even though we have it in the Team Attribute Award, it could be a machine award. And what the Judges Award is, it's an award that falls under the discretion of the judging panel, that we may give it to a team for some unique circumstance. For example, it may be that a team, they showed up at the event and they hadn't even built the robot. They don't have a lot of support at their school, but they were able to kind of rally and pull something together and actually compete. And, we'll try to give these awards like a special name. It can be like the Never Give Up Award or something like that. But we do have an award that is at the judge's discretion in terms of giving that out. The Engineering Inspiration Award and the Rookie All-Star Award, those two awards, the recipients get an automatic bid to the state district championship. So those are very important awards for teams to win. We look, if you think about the Impact Award, that's kind of the ultimate award that you can receive, as a team. And Engineering Inspiration, in a way, is kind of like, this is a team that we feel like is on its pathway to get to that impact type status. Rookie All-Star, by definition, these are rookie teams that really stand out. The Rising All-Star Award, this is an award that is not limited just to rookies. If you remember years ago, we used to have a Rookie Inspiration Award, and that went out to rookie teams. And they kind of modified that and said, no, we're looking for Rising All-Star Awards, because, a lot of teams will have a lot of turnover, for example, and they may have to kind of reinvent themselves as a team and things like that. So we wanted to make sure that we can, recognize that as well. Team Spirit Award. I mean, that was like stands, mascot, things like that. Those are some of the things that we're looking for that award. But again, if you go to the website, you can see all the guidelines and everything associated with all of these awards. And I would urge you to do that before the competition. For the submitted awards, and what I've done is I've already kind of pulled up what the deadline dates are because they are very important. But you have the First Impact Award. You can actually go and it'll see everything that's required in terms of the student essay and things like that. Again, like in the past, you don't have to submit a video for this award anymore. There's a digital animation award, and I just tried last week. I got with Alan Bancroft. He's our lead judge for FRC for the whole program. And I think there's still some programs TBD on that one in terms of how to submit for that. Dean's List Award, I think Kyle or someone's actually going to be speaking about that award, or maybe even Sue, to get more information. But the deadline on that one is February the 5th in 2026 by 3 p.m. And then there's a Safety Animation Award that package is due on November 20th. So that was a little bit sooner. And then we have the Woody Flower Finalist Award, and those nominations are due by February the 5th. And again, all the information for these special submitted awards you can find on the first website. The Dean's List Award, just a quick overview of that. Each team can nominate 2 students. I would urge every team to nominate 2 students. The more students we have in the pool, the better, because remember, even if these students don't win the award or even are like a semifinalist or whatever, it's still recognition for the students. So I would urge each team that's out there to nominate the 2 students. It's limited to sophomores and juniors only. And again, the due date is February the 5th, 2026. And these are some of the major changes that went into effect in 2024. Again, I had not heard of any changes in 2025 as far as the actual awards or anything like that. But these are some of the changes that we enacted last year. No remote interviews. They did away with the highest rookie seed award. And again, it was really a big change that we didn't have to worry about the videos for the First Impact Award. But I will have to say, I think most of the teams that won the Impact Award last year, both at the qualifier level and the championship, did have a video. So I would strongly urge teams to still do the video because it is an excellent outreach tool when you're going out and highlighting and showing things about your team. It's a good marketing tool to use. These are a few judging recommendations. Now, again, I think Jeremy's going to go into a lot more detail in terms of pit interviews and things like that. But, everyone that's been in the pit, you know how this works. You'll see the judges come out and start to talk with the students. And sometimes it's a function of how many students you have there at a competition. I mean, from time to time, we'll walk up to a pit. There's no kids there. It might be a relatively small team, and we'll kind of have to track them down during the day. We've even interviewed teams before in the queuing line. It's not ideal, but we have to get the data from the teams. But it is worthwhile to have students in the pits that are familiar with the programs. And let's say that someone that was really integral or critical on the design of the robot. Let's say they're also the driver, for example, and they're competing when the judges come. I tell the judges, say that Susie was critical in designing the control system, and she's the driver. And she's not here right now. Judges are fine. We'll come back. Don't try to make stuff up or try to cover on their behalf because it might not be complete data. I always tell people that judges, there's 3 key things that a judge does. They play detective, right? That's why they're out interviewing the students in the pits. Then they serve like a reporter. They bring that information that they've got in the pits back in the room, and then they're the advocate. I mean, obviously, let's say there's 30 teams there. there might be 10 robots that we feel like, or 10 teams that we feel like are vying for like one of these awards. There'll be a lot of give and take, talking back and forth as we try to determine who the most deserving recipient is. So that's why that key data, getting that data from the teams is so important. And to really have good spokespeople in your pit that can talk about team activities and talk about the design. One of the things you may want to consider, for example, if you feel like your team is like, man, we really think we've got a shot at creativity award, for example, do a one pager on it. Again, go to the website, look at the criteria for that award, and just, hey, does our robot, do we check off on all these things that we're looking for? Do a one pager. Remember, the judges will take any information that you give them in the pits, and that's useful information for us as a reminder, and also stuff that we can use during the deliberation as we're trying to figure out who the best recipient is. Again, that information is critical to take that back to the judging room. And again, I can't urge how important the communication is, and to have really good spokespeople in the pit when you're actually talking with the judges. So let's talk a few minutes about some of the key things that we actually do. We talked about the pit interviews. You'll also notice that a lot of times you'll see a judge or two on the scoring panel, basically observing all the matches. Because if you look at those team awards, I mean, the robot awards, it's critical that they, actually function on the field. For example, if you look at the, industrial design award, one of the criteria talks about that, there's minimal, breakdowns, things like that. So if we have a team, we talk to a team in the pit, it may sound great. Hey, they're a candidate for the industrial design award. But then when we look at the rankings or talk to the match observer, it may be that, this thing breaks down half the time, right? So that's why it's really critical to kind of have that input from the field. There's a lot of materials that we do review in terms of, things that the students will hand us in the pits. And one little thing is critical, that we only want to talk to the students. Right. We know that the parents, mentors, coaches can be within that pit. Sometimes it's hectic. An adult may hear a question and say, oh, yeah, just, we'll politely thank them for what they're doing for the team. But it is critical that we have to, get this information from the students only. The other thing is, after we, figure out who has received the awards, then we'll actually write the short scripts. And you'll see that, as we do that during the award ceremony, you'll hear these little scripts that we that we write. And of course, we'll also help out with the award presentations. So the high five line, which is a really fun time. And it'll almost bring tears to your eyes, look at these kids, especially like for the Engineering Inspiration All-Star and Impact Awards. Those are pretty big awards. The way we do it, the process is, confidentiality is really key to us. So if you ever see a judge and if you have a question like, well, we thought we did pretty good, then how come we didn't win that award? You're not going to hear anything. If they do tell you something, then you need to let me know, because that's supposed to be highly confidential in terms of the actual deliberation and how we figure out these awards. But we typically divide up into teams of two. We'll have like a group of judges like that'll focus just on machine attributes, a group of judges that'll focus only on team attributes. And we'll go out and canvass the field. And you should be interviewed a couple of times during the day, both from team attribute and also the robot awards. Then after we take all this, we'll go back and we'll figure out, we'll make nominations. So for each award, there might be 5 or 6 different teams that are nominated for a specific award. You may also notice that you'll never see one team win more than one award. We do a thing called spread the wealth. From a fairness standpoint, we don't want one robot or one team to win, half the awards. That's not very equitable. So we try to go in and kind of spread the wealth around a little bit. Of course, you can still win an award and also win the tournament. So the how the robot performs during the tournament is completely independent of the award process. That kind of plays out on its own. The first impact and Dean's List judging is completely separate from everything that we're doing on the field to determine the team and machine awards. The impact award is very important since that's the biggest award. And then the next two awards that are very critical, as I mentioned before, is the engineering inspiration and the rookie all-star, because again, remember those two awards get an automatic bid to the district championship. So we always want to figure those out first, right? And the impact, since that's the biggest award, that's the first award that will hand out. Then it does what's called it's the domino or daisy, whatever you want to call it, because for each award you may have several nominations, and you could have a robot that we know is interviewing for impact, but let's say, oh, well, they're doing really good in innovation and control. Well, you wouldn't say they're going to get innovation and control and take them out of contention for impact. Impact would be figured out first, and then they wouldn't be viable for the innovation and control. And that's kind of how the process works. Nothing confidential about that. That's just the way we hand out the awards. And of course, the Woody Flowers Award, that's completely separate from everything else that we do. Very important things about these awards, and again, you're going to hear a little bit more detail on the Dean's List later, but you got to get that submission in by the posted deadline. We've had teams that missed the deadline, showed up the event, said, hey, we're here to interview for impact, and they're not on our list. That's because they missed that deadline. You may also notice that if you put in for an award like impact, it's like, well, why am I interviewing at 9:15? All that's random, right? So what we want to do is at the beginning of the year, one of the things I'll do is for each event, just using a random number generator, I'll figure out a kind of a random time for the teams. Doesn't mean it can't be changed. It may be that you have a presenter that's also a driver, and when we do the matches, it's like, hey, we got a conflict at this time. It's fair game for the teams to talk and get agreement on swapping times and things like that. And we do that on a needed basis. For the Impact Award, if you do that, it's 12 minutes total time for interviews. The presentation part, when you come in and present to the judges, is 7 minutes exactly. And unfortunately, from time to time, it'll go over and we'll have to stop the team. But it's 12 minutes total. So if you take 7 minutes, right, 6 minutes and 59 seconds, you come right in, you're good. Then you would have basically 5 minutes for questions. We've had teams that come in and they show us a video that's 3 minutes. That gives us 9 minutes for questions. At the end of the day, we have a block of 12 minutes total. And teams, I've seen it all over the map. Some teams will have a video, some teams will do some presentation part for each team member will say something. I've kind of seen everything. Dean's List is like a 6 to 10 minute interview, and Sue Miller does a phenomenal job across the state kind of managing that program for me, so I love that. Anyway, so that's kind of it for the Impact and Dean's List awards, and that's basically all I've got. Hopefully there's a better understanding of how we kind of break these awards up into machine and team. A little bit about how we do the interviewing process. Again, it's critical for the pit interviews for the teams to have good spokespeople in there that they can tell the judges as much information as they can about their team activities for outreach and also the design of the robot, because that's the data that we take back into the judging room. You may want to think about handouts. Some of the really good teams, they'll have handouts. They'll have like a business plan, for example, that'll talk about all the different outreach activities they've done with metrics. How many social media hits do they have on some of the forums and things like that. So the more documentation you have really helps us out when we do the deliberations to figure out who the recipients are. So anyway, any questions about judging in general. Now's the time.
So Puma would like to know, so for the Impact Award, one option is presenting just a video during the interview.
It's completely, it is completely up to the team. And I've seen some teams will come in, they'll have their, like a monitor on a cart, and they'll come in and they'll hit play, right? I've seen that. But a lot of the teams, I'll say the teams that are well experienced and have potentially won it several times in the past, typically what they'll do is they'll come in and you're limited to 3 students, and they'll like come in at 6 minutes and 45 seconds. I'll get a little bit nervous towards the end because I don't like to see teams go over, right? But they'll do a presentation, and they may have a monitor there, just like with a slide deck, right? But they'll actually present and have a story. They'll present their story, and that is the only time that the judges actually get to interact with the students. Part of that judging process, we do not watch videos, right? That's part of the judging, because obviously some teams can spend a lot of money on a professionally produced video. So we kind of want to take that piece of it out of the equation. So the only data that is used in judging is the interview period, that 12 minutes. That's where we get a lot of data from the team, and any materials that they bring in during the interview. If they come in with a business plan, they come in with their documentation data, they come in with pamphlets, flyers, buttons, pack, whatever they bring in is what we'll actually be using in the judging. The only other thing that's fair that can be used in the judging is anything that's in the public domain. Like, it's fair for us to go to their website, it's fair for us to Google, we can do anything that's in the public domain. We will not go to the pits, right? It's like, oh man, we got a question, I'd love to ask them this. After the interview, we can't go back in the pits. You only have that 7 minutes, right, during their presentation, and then the question time. That's the only time we get to speak with the students about the award. But if I look at who has won in the past, typically the better teams have been the ones that have presented, because that shows the passion that the kids have, the passion of what they're doing, and it really stands out. And you have to remember, we've had one team, it was Kell Robotics, won it at the national level. And even the teams that win it at the national level, typically that's what they'll do. They'll have a presentation, they'll tell a story, and the judges kind of get to see the passion within those students. The analogy that I always tell people is, people will come to Kimberly-Clark a lot selling us, hey, we want you to support this nonprofit, for example. And when they come in and present to us as executives, it's like, what I want to invest in them. And we've had folks that are come in that are kind of blah, they're not too passionate. Well, I'm not going to cut them a check for $50,000. But trust me, we've had some teams that have come in and interviewed, and I'm like, give me the checkbook. I'm ready to invest today. That's what we want to see. And you know what? That's how these teams are going to be able to get the message of FIRST out to the community, is with that passion. So the presentation style is also very important. And if I think about the teams that have won, I know they get a lot of coaching, for their mentors and whatnot, in terms of their storytell, presentation style. That's part of it. That's something you're going to use in the real world, later on in your career. That communication piece and selling, influencing is very important. Any other questions?
Thank you. And then Aparna would like to know, how many participants are there?
How many judges there are?
She put how many participants?
Participants in what?
Aparna, could you clarify your question?
Did you get any clarification?
No.
Well, since we were talking about the impact award, I'll assume it's about the impact award. As far as participants go, there'll be anywhere from 2 to 3 judges in the room, and you're limited to a maximum of 3 students that can present, and then they're allowed an adult observer. And of course, the observer kind of has to be in the back of the room. They can't give signals or speak or do anything like that. They're there just to observe. But typically, there's 2 to 3 judges and 3 students. We've seen it where one student would come in and just talk. They can do that, right? But usually there's 3 students with a really buttoned up presentation, a lot of marketing. They'll be, dressed alike. They'll have really nice handouts and things like that. That's what I would call the more experienced teams that if you look at their resume, they probably won it several times. That's typically the model, right? Look very professional. They'll come in, they'll have a lot of good handouts for the judges, and they'll have a really polished presentation, and they'll use as much time as they can, because remember, that's the only time they have to kind of tell their story. So they'll typically be cutting it kind of close, like 6 minutes, 50 seconds, and I always get nervous towards the end that they don't go over, but hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, so she just wanted a clarification, and she meant like in the matches, how many participants are there?
How many participants in the matches?
Yes.
You mean the actual when they're playing on the field?
He has not clarified. But I think that's what she means. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I'm not 100% sure. That's a referee question, but I think they can have like 2 students and a coach. I think they can have like the 2 drivers, and then they can have a coach. So I think there's 3 for each team. So you have 3 alliances per side. There's a total of 6 teams on the field at one time.
And then Christopher would like to ask, do you have any tips for mentors helping prepare students who are new to the PIT interview process?
Yeah, and I think Jeremy's really going to go into that. But the number one thing that I've seen, and I've done this a lot over the years, it's that communication piece, and it's the ability to answer questions either about design or the team attributes. Remember, if you're talking to judges about robot design stuff, it's like typical question, for example, hey, what are you most proud of? And it may be a shooting mechanism, and we'll get details about their shooting mechanism or how they track targets or something like that. And they may give us some insight into innovation and control, because you have to remember a typical PIT interview is probably about 10 minutes. So we're trying to get a lot of data in those 10 minutes so we can make decisions to go back to make the nominations. That's why if you're a robot, if you have some really just astounding feature, it's funny because depending on which student you talk to, you'll get different bits of information. Like one time there was this team that when we spoke with them, we didn't hear anything that astounding in the PIT interview, but on the field, this robot was doing some amazing things. So we're like, wait a minute, well, I think we missed something. So we went back out into the pits, and we can do that. We can go in and out of the pits as many times as we want to get data. We went back into the pits and found out that they could like push a button, and in their innovation and control system, anytime they wanted to shoot, they would push a button, and wherever the robot was, it would automatically track the target and it would shoot. That's pretty amazing. That was cool, right? We didn't get that in the pit because the student we talked to really didn't have the details, right? They might have been on another team or something like that. But luckily, we got it because the match observer was able to see it perform on the field, right? That's why it's important that if your robot has a really unique feature that gets conveyed remember what I told you, the judges acting like detectives? You want to tell the detectives hey, this is a key feature about the robot. I think a thing for the coaches and mentors would be over communication is not bad. If you think you're a robot, again, by reviewing those award criteria on the FIRST website, we got a chance at creativity and industrial design, just making that up. Then have a little one pager. Hey, here's some features about our robot that we think is really good for this application or that application. Hand it to the judge. That's fair game. You can give the judges anything, right? And that'll be data that we can take back and use it when we're doing the deliberations. And that's also my biggest fear because, a lot of times even the judges, it's like that we have to take a test and everything. But again, if they don't ask a certain question or something, we could miss a piece of data, right? And that's why we want to do things like, we'll check like Blue Alliance, what are the rankings? It may be, why is this robot ranked so high? And we'll do a little bit more digging and we'll find out that, well, they haven't missed any of their shots or they climb every day. There'll be something that the reason why that robot's doing so good on the field, and we want to make sure we capture that.
Thank you. And I think those are all the questions.
No more questions?
Yes.
Well, listen, again, hopefully everyone, it's nothing mysterious. Okay. The judges are there to, again, try to get as much information about your team as we can back in that judge's room so we can do the deliberation. So, overly communicate, right? Make sure you got the right folks in the pits that are knowledgeable, that they can, convey that to the judges. And I think that's the best shot or the best opportunity to win an award. So hopefully this was useful. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out and email me, and I will get back with you. But thanks for attending the session and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you for presenting with us. So I think that's it for today's session. So Aparna asks, are we allowed to use a printed card with the pattern of the obelisk in the match?
Are we allowed to use a printed card with the pattern? That sounds like so you need to talk to a referee about that one. That's a Jan question.
And I think those are all of the questions.
All right. Well, hey, enjoy the rest of the day. Glad to meet everyone virtually. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and let me know.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone who joined.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I'm going to end session now.